I thought, as I have a habit of staying up till 4 in the morning, that jet lag wouldn't be an issue because I just have already adjusted to my bad sleep would equal England time. It sort of did while I was there, but coming back was worse. 12-hour plane. It was left England, left somewhere, 6 a.m., 12-hour flight, 2 hours at the airport, 7-hour flight, 6 a.m. here, day, fell asleep at 5 p.m. or 7, got back up at 7 for dinner. I don't know, it was just a day of grog. And then go to sleep to get up early the next day, to go to sleep at 12 to try and reset sleep. But then woke up 7 p.m. the next day, slept, 19, 17 hours, 12, like a full 12 hours plus the 8 hours I slept. So I slept all day, and that messes with medications. And then thought, okay, but that's fine, I'll go back to bed, but then didn't feel sleepy, went to bed at 6 in the morning, and then had my sister's birthday the next day. So 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. I slept, and then I woke up at 9 p.m. actually feeling kind of refreshed, had the day, sister's birthday, back home, wake up the next day with migraine. Lost track of a Jovi. So I definitely took enough for the holiday itself, but I didn't track what day I'd need to take it once I got back. So ordered some, but worse headache than usual, plus jet lag. Yeah. I live in Australia. I've never left the country before. I'm afraid of heights. I've been in that situation. Not that high because I'd never get up there in the first place. I have gone through a lot. Every single Mr. Bean episode is the greatest episode of Mr. Bean. I wish there was such a thing as a gold sticker for some shows, because Mr. Bean and Wallace and Gromit should have it. And Doctor Who is a great show that we all complain about. There's a philosophy to Doctor Who I love, and I put that in my father's eulogy.
You don't understand. I can remember it all, and you'll still be gone.
Are you being served? Are you free, Mr. Granger? He goes, oh, yes, I'm free. The two Ronnies. I grew up on Harry Potter. J.K. Rowling's actions are really spoiling everything. Paddington and Paddington 2. People go to Comedy Festival here, and then they go to Edinburgh. Sherlock. World's End was coming out in cinemas around that time. So me and my dad went to see World's End. Thunderbirds. I'm definitely getting a Thunderbird shirt of some sort. I really want to talk about Alice in Wonderland 1985. This one has Alice encountering the Jabberwocky. It scared me as a kid. As a kid, I was afraid of that Jabberwocky. And she's shouting at it, I'm not afraid of you anymore. And I'd like to say that to going on this trip. 10 years from the America trip, I'm doing a lot better.
It's time. Get up off your ass and win.
Don't you want to know how I survived? Go on, ask me. And I'm going to explain to you how I survived.
Always look on the bright side of death.
Laugh hard.
Face your fears.
Run fast.
Rescue yourself.
Be kind.
Go to England.
I let you go.
See you in the next one when I'm back and I get to tell you how great it was. I definitely needed that holiday. I definitely needed that holiday. And then I've come back. Unfortunately, 2 months of proactive holiday and then 2 months readjusted back into bad habits. It is definitely time for a change. It is time for a change. That's more like it. This took so much preparation. I was 2 months ahead from filming stuff before I left, so I wouldn't have to edit and film while I left. But then came back and had to edit all of those and recover from jet lag, and then track what I did, what actually happened in real time. I wrote notes as I went, I took photos as I went, and then I had to go through 11,600 photos, corroborate them with the notes that I took, and then realize multiple things were still missing because I was just busy. So this This is my holiday. These are my notes. With all the lights on and the hat, it is too warm. It is too warm. Phew. So actually it turns out that when I said I was going to England, that was the main place I remembered and inspired the previous video. But it turns out, and I knew this because I watched Madeline trying to learn French, I was going to more countries than just England. This is why I have cards. My memory, like, I remember it all. I remember it all. But it's not until someone goes, hey, remember that thing? That I'm like, oh yeah, that thing. Yes, I remember that thing. No. You're kidding me. While filming this, I've had a 5th migraine. There's 500 of these. I went on the holiday from the 5th of July to the 28th of August, and at the time of recording this part, it is now the 22nd of November. I initially wrote multiple hints on each card, and then I got a migraine while trying to read them, and for some reason assumed it was because I was reading too much. So I put every single cue that I want to talk about on a separate note card. I'll see how far I get. I now have a long extension cord to keep the battery going so the battery can't go flat. I've taken all the information off the SD card, so that shouldn't run out anytime soon. Here we go. So I survived the holiday, and then survived 7 migraines in a row. And now it's like 37 degrees outside. I cannot see a thing and I'm tired. I initially wrote the notes like this, and that was too much. Oh yeah, the Thunderbird shirt, I didn't buy on the holiday. I found absolutely no Thunderbird store. At best, there was one online, which I can access from home. There was supposedly a BBC store, but it was closed. So I just ordered this once I got back. Here we go. If there's one more town, I'll be going. A fight for the winning, I'll be there. If there's one more song, I'll be singing. I'm always going, but I don't know where. Keep a moving, on. Keep a moving, on. Before the flight. But, oh, I'm never finding that card again. So I said I was going to England because that's the main place I was planning to go, but I completely forgot that I was going to Singapore on the way there, and we'd booked a few days in France. So I actually ended up going to Singapore, England, Scotland, Ireland, England again, France, and then back home. The thing about I have numbered them, but the thing about chucking them is, yeah, my partner's right. If I need to get them again to while I'm editing, they're gone. So I've been, like, interstate. So I know they have, like, suitcase limits and things like that, but I can't think ahead that way. So luckily I was under the limit on the way there, and foreshadowing. And this is me with a mustache. The beard I have in the last video was filmed before I left. And then I shaved and thought, wouldn't it be funny to see what I look like with a mustache? I hate it. I completely shaved it off before I left. And good thing too, Singapore was like 30 degrees every day. But in that time that I was there, I've regrown the beard. And now it's been several months later. So I have shaved again since. I've had a haircut since. But it's now been so long since I filmed this again that it feels like I didn't shave or get a haircut at all. That one said me with mustache, this one said shave for holiday. I've already talked about that. So I've been to Queensland and Tasmania and Perth. I've been on planes before. I've just not been overseas before. So it was really cool to see the international aspect of the airport. I imagine it's because I was going to Singapore specifically, but the international airport had a line of pandas like panda statues, which looked really cool. It also made it a surreal experience because it meant that I hadn't left the country yet, and I was already like, wait a second, how did I get to Singapore airport? Like, it didn't occur to me that they'd have Singaporean things and international things at the Australian airport, that I wouldn't encounter anything international until I got there. I was reading Piranesi before I left, and this is the problem with the suitcase limit. I wanted to finish reading Piranesi before I left because I didn't want to bring the book on the holiday and then have to carry it around for 2 months. I got right up to like the last 3 or 4 chapters and ran out of time. So I brought it with me to the airport and read it at the airport and then finished the book and then had no reason to need to bring it with me the rest of the holiday. It was recommended by Tudor Ramble and I read it and it was quite good. It even has, funnily enough, a Doctor Who reference in the back somewhere. Oh, well, I can't find it. There'll be an image. I mean, just look at it. The nice design cover, the gold trim, the fact that it won an award, the fact that it's like thin, but it's got that like nice bendiness. I love holding this book. The way the gold trim on the title sticks out, the way it flops. This is just a nice book to feel. And on top of that, interesting world design. A person lives in a 3-story house. And they say house, but like even the way they say they're in a house, it makes you feel like it's definitely not just a house. Like it's a giant mansion, it's a maze, and it's filling with water. So just from a visceral world building perspective, I really enjoyed this book. I did get to the end of it and went, the plot's a bit average, but it was really interesting to just sink my teeth into the prose. And I'm not usually prose first. I love plot. I love pushing characters to their limits. I, as a writer, feel like I struggle with description and prose, and that book was just immersive. I loved just immersing myself in the house and Piranesi's experience of the house. Yeah. Oh yeah, there were also movies on the plane. We had Moneyball, which I have on DVD, but I hadn't actually got around to watching. So it was weird to see it for the first time. Like, I buy it on discount, figuring I'll just try it, and if I don't like it, whatever. But I tried it for the first time on a plane overseas, when I have it on DVD and could have watched it any time. That's just a strange experience to have. I also got to watch Hello Dolly, which I haven't watched since I was really, really young. I have a bunch of videos I want to make that were like the movies I watched as a kid that I then rebought on DVD. And Hello Dolly isn't on there because I never actually got around to rebuying it on DVD. But of all the movies I used to reborrow, Hello Dolly, Pirates of Penzance, Singing in the Rain was a common one. Like, there were several that me and my family just kept reborrowing. So Hello Dolly is one of those ones where I instantly recognize it. It has the guy from Some Others Do Have Him in it. And I only just learned this. Barbra Streisand is Dolly. I didn't know that as a kid. I didn't know who Barbra Streisand was. But the second I saw it again, I was like, whoa, is that Barbra Streisand? And during my VCE school, like year 12 schooling, I had to do a dramatic monologue and I didn't know which one to do. And I recognized instantly the name Horace Vandergelder and picked that one just because I knew the name. So I haven't watched Hello Dolly in decades, but I instantly connected with Horace Vandergelder, and rewatching it was great. From the get-go, Horace Vandergelder's banter with everybody else, just like they were talking about jobs and passion and life, and I forget the exact quote, but it was some like quick snappy line back. You instantly understand his world perspective, you understand why he's bitter, but also like how he functions in life. It's got that Ebenezer Scrooge element, very like, you know, he runs his business and he likes it the way he has it, and he's very stubborn. So it's cool to see Barbra Streisand come in being matchmaker and mess with his world, trip up his stubborn, I've got everything under control sense of stature, and yeah, the world crumbles underneath him, and she is effectively his 3 ghosts. Like, it's that typical strong businessman thinks he has the world under his feet, but then a woman comes along and he knows nothing. And it's like, you know, that's a stereotype cliche, but the movie does really well with that dynamic. And of course, you know, the guy from Some Others Do Have 'Em, and all the comedy antics that come with that, where they have to hide in the cupboard, hide under the table. It's all there. It does really well at what it's doing. And for the tropes of its time, it does those tropes really well. And I really enjoyed watching it again, to the point where I'm definitely going to buy it on DVD, and I'm definitely going to make a video about it once the others are done. It just wasn't originally on the list, even though it absolutely should be. I'm enjoying that way too much, and they're all over the floor. Once I've thrown the card, I can't really retake this unless I know exactly where the card went. Oh yeah, the lady on the plane next to me started praying, and then coughed, and then picked her nose. Like, I was wearing a mask, and I was considering whether to wear a mask or not. I figured international flight are better. Like, these days I'm high risk, but I've got the vaccines and I'm a lot less concerned about it now. But when she started picking her nose, I was like, good thing I wore the mask. And then I got to Singapore airport. What instantly stuck out to me, and this is a weird trend now with me, the urinals are really, really low. And this created like a weird special interest where I started noticing more than anything the different cultures of the toilet design. Like, you know, you go around restaurants and whatnot, but everything's modernized, so most things actually feel pretty similar. Like, there might be some social culture differences, but at the end of the day, you know, a restaurant is a restaurant. You get food, you eat it. Whereas the urinals, well, where it was like the taps are different, the sinks are different, the height of the toilet is different. I've never seen that before. And when I got out of the toilets into the actual airport, the first thing I saw was Paris baguette. And again, I was thrown because I was like, wait, no, France is at the end of the holiday. Why is the first thing I see in Singapore French? It threw me. There were these passport scanners where, you know, you slide your passport in, that was a pretty common thing. But then you go into a little booth where you have to look directly at a camera and it tells you the instructions and you have to read them, but you have to read the screen while standing in this little booth. And so you want to step in, so you're on the little foot thing, but not so far that you, like, the doors close on you. It's like that automatic door fear of, like, they open, you jump in, they close, you gotta stand there, look at the screen. Then the second one's open, you jump out, and you're good. Foreshadowing for later. There was seafood pasta at a Singapore restaurant in the airport where, because it was seafood, it came with prawns that, you know, you have to break apart and whatnot. And I've done that before. I've had prawns before, but never while they're covered in pasta sauce. So I was just like doing this and my hands are getting all saucy. I am not a clean eater. Like, I was just getting sauce everywhere and I had nowhere to put the prawns. Like, I didn't know, not even just culturally, I don't know how to eat in my own country. Like, I didn't know where to put the shell. So I just kept putting them on a napkin and the napkin's getting sauce all over it. And it just went everywhere. I made a mess of that pasta. My seafood pasta was probably a bad choice. I really enjoyed the pasta, but I am a messy eater and trying to physically crack food open with my hands, covered in sauce, bad plan. Bad plan. To quote Frank Woodley, I am a bad planner. We got to the Singapore hotel and it was really cool. I have expensive tastes, which is annoying being on a pension, but they had escalators up the levels, but they also had an elevator that was open screen, so you could see out of it. And I have a fear of heights, so a nice, beautiful view of the hotel. And me staring at the doors because I didn't want to look out the window because you could see straight down. It got to the point where one point I had to go down to get food I ordered or something, and the thing sort of like didn't move, and I was pressing the button like, it's gonna drop any second now, it's gonna drop. So I would just stare at the doors and like, I walk in, do a full 180 rotate, and then just go, Don't turn around. There was an all-you-can-eat breakfast, which was really good, but I'm starting to catch on that I've had, like, constipation issues, and I'm only bringing that up because there was one other all-you-can-eat place I went to where I got a migraine after eating there, and I've slowly become convinced that might actually be one of my triggers, not any food itself, but the actual just eating too much food. So when I wake up and there's eggs and hash browns and mushrooms and all the oily stuff, I got a stomach ache. And went back up to the hotel to rest and nodded off. Probably also from the jet lag, which I hadn't registered I was feeling, but I literally was like, oh no, stomach pain. I was trying to avoid that. So I actually got migraine anxiety the first day in Singapore, also just because I knew that was going to happen. I'm in another country for the first time, and if I get a migraine there, that's several days out of the trip. So I was going to be nervous on my first arrival. Don't get sick, don't get sick. But it was then on top of that I had the all-you-can-eat breakfast, got a stomach ache, and then went back up to the hotel and fell asleep. So I hope that helped. And I guess spoilers, I didn't have a migraine while in Singapore. So I don't know what I did. We did go down the road to get some medication for the stomach ache. So, you know, the fact that the stomach ache still happened, but the migraine didn't, I feel like I'm onto something there, but it's all, I'll drive myself crazy with theories. When I woke up, I put the TV on just to see what was on, a bunch of Singapore shows in a language I didn't understand, but I came across, there was a duck flying in the air. And then there was a talking dog, and it took me a while because we didn't know what we were watching. But it turned out to be Babe Pig in the City, which I thought I'd watched as a child. But I remember someone telling us that it wasn't for kids. And having now rewatched Babe Pig in the City, I completely agree. It, at first, it was so surreal. There was a monkey wearing a dress, and then cops or people come in and invade the monkey's home and take them all away poacher style, and then they're stripped, and then the monkey's like, I can't believe we're naked, this is such shame. And I was like, what is this surreal movie? And I actually became convinced that it had to be some kind of dubbed French art film. That it was only as surreal as it was because it was originally some French arty movie, and then they dubbed it, and now we think it's an English movie. It turned out, no, it's made by George Miller, who made Mad Max. So I see where the artistry came from, but at that point it actually weirdly clicked. It took it from, this is a bizarre movie I don't understand, to, the dog almost drowned, but then the pig saves it, and the dog is part of a mafia, and the mafia dog is like, thank the pig, they stole the monkey's jelly beans, and then divide the jelly beans back, and it started to remind me of Animal Farm, where it's like, okay, they're animals, but there's a real metaphor here. But then I didn't know how to feel about that, because it's like Animal Farm meets Godfather meets Charlotte's Web. It was just so surreal. So I went from completely hating it to you know what? If you look past that they're animals, and you look at the metaphor of the whole thing, it really works. But it felt like I had some kind of Stockholm syndrome. I started with, this is a nonsense movie, I don't know what it's trying to do, and then slowly understood what it was trying to do, but it's still strange. And then you have Magda Skabunski, I don't know how to say her last name. You had Magda in a big clown suit, and she's hanging from some straps and jumping around this big ball pit. So, I don't know. As my partner said, they didn't understand their audience, because we looked it up afterwards, and it turns out the first one was less dark than this one, and the first one was really well received. Then this one went down this weird dark path, which apparently I've seen the Indiana Jones films. Me and a friend really liked the second one because of its dark, you could really feel the punches. But at the same time, the first one is the beloved one, and the second one was uncomfortably dark. And I think I like when films really go there. But
I can see how, yeah, the original film would have been more family friendly, not Charlotte's Web level, but more family friendly. And then the second one was like dog near drown. And it's like, yeah, what, I get it, but woo. So I can totally see how it didn't quite understand its audience, and I like it maybe for all the wrong reasons, and even then it was quite a adjustment. It was an acquired taste, and I don't know what to make of that. It was made well, but I don't know whether what it did was a good idea. Oh, we went out shopping and I knew I had to go to a McDonald's. If there was another way to see culture, it was going to be how each McDonald's was different in each country. Like, admittedly, I think even going overseas, I was never going to be like the biggest risk taker. I wasn't going to be like, what's the most Singaporean thing? What's the most French thing? I was just going to be like, hey, what's their version of my thing? So when I see a McDonald's, I'm like, ooh, what's the Singaporean version of McDonald's? And the first thing I found was that they don't sell Big Mac sauce. My usual is 10 nuggets with chips and a bottle of water, a fillet of fish, and an Oreo McFlurry. And with the nuggets, I always get Big Mac sauce. Apparently it's an Australian thing, but no one had it. Not a single other country had it. And there was this toy machine that said, toys are not allowed to shift to your desired position. Well, yeah, is that a note for us or the toys? Wait, I just imagine the toys shifting and they put up a sign, the toys are not allowed to move. If you see them move, you tell them off. And how do they enforce that? Like, toys are not allowed to shift to your desired position. But if you... Like, you should really just say, don't bang the machine. Don't knock the machine. Because if a toy falls of its own accord, are they gonna, like, jump out from behind some bushes and be like, nope, your winning is invalid? How do they know? Toys are not allowed to be moved by you. Toys are not allowed to shift to your desired position. They'd have to be sure that it is, in fact, your desired position. They'd have to be sure that you didn't make it that way. And even then, it's completely unenforceable if it's an accident. House of Socks. I've just never seen a shop that is all socks. I'm sure they're around. This made me start to think that maybe I just haven't been outside in a while. Because surely somewhere we have just a shop that is all socks. But I've not seen one. And there was a Toys R Us. Again, there were Toys R Us's in Australia. There were. I'm sure there's one or two around. There's a Toy Kingdom, but the actual shop itself still looks like a warehouse. So like most toy shops have just gone downhill, if they exist at all. Toys R Us was big when I was a child. They were like, I mean, both popular and physically big. You walked in there and it was like a entire supermarket full of toys. Now you're lucky to see a Toys R Us. So when I saw one, I went straight in there. And I came across Pokemon cards and thought to myself, don't buy Pokemon cards. You'll have nowhere to put them. There's no way to sleeve them. And you'll have to bring them back home. Like, they'll warp in the next 2 months. You can buy Pokemon cards when you're at home. Don't buy Pokemon cards. Do not buy Pokemon cards. And I saw them everywhere I went. Every country had at least one store that was selling Pokemon cards. There was also an anime store, which was really cool. There was some Dragon Ball Z toys that I don't have photos of. Yeah, it was really cool. That's something we're sort of lacking. Like, we've got Minotaur in Australia. That's the one I know of. There are board game shops, but like, we don't have what Singapore had in terms of anime stock. Our bookstores do have some manga, but like, for the most part, you can feel like they've had to deliver it from overseas. It costs them a lot of money. They're probably not making their margins back. Whereas you go to Singapore, and Singapore is a core trade route. So they've got a lot of English stuff, but also a lot of Japanese, Chinese, Korean. Like, it was, Singapore had much more of a Eastern Western balance. And despite what Australia says about being multicultural, we don't have that same level of balance. From what I know or remember, maybe I haven't been outside in a while. It feels like maybe we do have it and I just haven't found it. We went back to the hotel and watched Markiplier slay the princess and stuff like this. I'm like, it's just the little things, probably not worth mentioning, but I did note from this that Piranesi, Slay the Princess, and Babe Pig in the City were all surreal, visceral experience stories. Like, not big plot stake, character pushed to their limits as a character dissection. But all three of them had me thinking, you know what? There is really some merit to something that is world building first. Like, I really like saying there's a character who has a desire, and then they have a problem to solve, and along the way they are challenged, and that is the plot. And then setting is just the environment with which they are challenged. But these three things back to back made me think that I really enjoy atmosphere. And that's not something that I genuinely thought was a weakness of mine. Like, I'd sit down to write and struggle to write atmosphere. But those three have really inspired me to go atmosphere first. So Markiplier Slay the Princess really stuck with me, as did Piranesi and Babe Pig in the City. There was a breakfast place called Toastbox, and while I was there, I learned that Singapore has cleanliness laws, which again, I don't know if we have. I'm sure littering is some kind of illegal, but there it's like, I think strongly enforced that you put your tray away. In Australia, I used to have a restaurant that I'd frequently go to, and me and my friends at the time, we'd clean up after ourselves. We'd put all the food onto one plate, stack all the plates, make it as easy as we could for the waiters and waitresses to do their job, because we understood that even though it's their job, like it's a hard job, it's an annoying job, and it's one less thing for them to do. Like they're not in need of more work. They're not in need of making the job harder. They're not starved of more things to do. A lot of the time, you'll eat your food, look down at your tray and go, where do I put this? And maybe you find a bin, like at McDonald's you find a bin with a tray thing on top of it. But for the most part, it's sort of like, just leave it. Yeah, they'll clean it up. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to assume that. But usually that is the case. You leave your table, someone comes across and packs it away. But that doesn't feel like it should be the norm. Like, it always feels polite to put your knife and fork on your plate, stack it nice and evenly, make it as easy as you can for them. And yeah, in Singapore, it is straight up a law. Put your stuff away. Don't leave anything on the table. No rubbish, no nothing. And I really like that. That system just made sense to me. Just, you eat it, you clean it. And yeah, it is 37 degrees now because November is nearing summer. But Singapore, as far as I can tell, is summer all year round. Even though I was there for 3 days. Singapore was really hot, and I knew that going there. I was a bit nervous because I have a heart condition. I don't go outside when it's over 30 degrees. I just don't. So I was a bit iffy about going to Singapore because of the heat, but for financial purposes, it was easier to go from Australia, Singapore, England than it was to go Australia, England. But then I bought a fan, and I carried that fan around just fanning myself. It was actually manageable. I was surprised. I went out pretty much every day in the heat and survived, coped. It was actually okay. Like, it's hard at home because it's hard to do that like at a workplace or anything. But now I've got that fan, 30-degree days don't bother me so much as long as I charge the fan, which I didn't do today. And it was 37 degrees. Also, the custom of bowing to thank people, I really like. Initially, I thought I was going to be pretty much against it because it feels weird I sort of believe that everyone should be relatively equal. Like, you want to show respect and appreciation, but the idea of bowing the more high status they are has always sort of bothered me as a concept. But when my hands are full and I want to show appreciation and I'm in a rush, it just feels awkward to go, yeah, thank you, thanks, whereas going, thank you. It gives me something physically to do. It demonstrates the respect. And it's a way to demonstrate the appreciation without feeling like just an awkward, blinking at them and going, yeah, thanks, yeah, sure. There is just a sense of, usually you go, thank you, or handshake or whatever. But if your hands are full, it just feels like there is no way to signal that. You can say it, but it just doesn't feel the same. Whereas being able to bob your head, I got so used to that when I left Singapore, I was still going, thank you very much, thank you, because it just made sense. Like you're putting yourself in a vulnerable position for a minute for the sake of the other person's good work. That just made sense to me. Yeah, I actually really like that system. We got a bus tour around so that even though we were there for like 3 or 4 days, we could see pretty much everything there was to see and then isolate the things we wanted to physically go to. And it did also mean that you'd be out somewhere warm, the heat would sort of get to you, then you get back on the bus where they have full aircon. The thing about Singapore is because it's hot all the time around, they're very much prepared for heat. There are air cons everywhere, in the shops, on the bus. Like they're physically selling fans. They were just ready for it, which meant that the heat never caught you off guard. It was never too hot. And as someone who really struggles in the heat, I really liked that. Also, it was raining that first day, and they give you free raincoats on the bus tour. Like they're, cheap plastic raincoats, but I've never been given a free raincoat before. I love that. Yeah, you had the red bus and the yellow bus, and they just have different routes around. So I think we took the yellow bus the first day, and then the red bus eventually, and then a night bus. And it did mean we covered pretty much everything. We didn't go physically to everything there was. We didn't have the time, but I can at least come home and go, I saw everything there was to see. I've relatively experienced everything that I was hoping to see at some point, and if I have the time and money, I can go back and explore it further. Oh, the Singapore Gardens. It was under a giant dome, luckily, but it was like cloudy outside when I was taking photos. The rain was pouring down the dome, which actually made it a cool experience. Like if it had been sunny, it'd been fine, but the actual pattern of rain on the dome just added something. Atmosphere. It had this big waterfall, like big plant thing. It was like a giant tree. And it was really like, photos don't do it justice. Because it's one thing to go, oh wow, that's a big tourism site thing. And another to walk in, feel just the air droplets of water. Like again, it's 30 degrees outside. It's raining on top of the dome. But you walk in and it's just nice temperature, weather. And then you just feel this sprinkle of water, and you can hear the and the water, you can see, like you walk in, you go, and it's just big. Like you don't feel the scope unless you are standing right in front of it, right below it, and you just get a combination of, you can see its size, you can hear the crashing of the water, you can feel the air and the wind and the water, or even you can smell the flowers, like all your senses light up. It's just beautiful. And this is what I think I mean by atmosphere. If I sat down to write a character goes to a garden, I'd probably just write a character goes to a garden, and then I'd start deconstructing the character. I would really struggle to sit there and be like, here's what the garden felt like. But when you're there, now I have experienced that. And the atmosphere does most of the heavy lifting. But also, it was really high up. Foreshadowing. Like, we went through all the flowers, past this really cool house with a garden in front of it. But then, as we got further and further around, it became clear that you had to go up. And I have a fear of heights. I have a big fear of heights. I have a high fear of heights. So I actually did say to my partner, can we go back through the entrance? Because there's no way I'm getting up there. And, initially it was a sort of a back and forth, because I'm afraid of heights, but I'm also big on facing your fears. There are definitely some that I'm less big on, but more often than not, when I'm like, oh, that, I can't do that, or I'm afraid of that, or I don't want to do that, there's the part in the back of my head that goes, not to try and big myself up, but like, a hero would do that, a hero would work through that. Like, I get this sense of you should work on that. You should actually overcome that. And something like heights is a hard one because I got it from being on a seesaw with a family friend. They got off and having felt that feeling of the drop, it's really hard to say face your fear of heights. If you have a fear of heights and you go up high and you fall off something, you're never getting up there again. So it's a hard one because I don't want to risk my life to face that fear. And while it's all railing and stuff, it's still gonna feel like risking my life. That's the fear part. It feels like life or death. So I always end up having to weigh up. Oh, that's really terrifying. I don't want to do that. And then it's a question of, and am I going to stick to that? Or am I going to defy it? And sometimes it's one, sometimes it's the other. So at first I backtracked. Because I looked at it and I went, maybe. Because there was there was a ramp below it and then a ramp up the top. And I was going, there's no way I'm getting up the ramp up the top, but maybe there's a way to do the ramp in the middle. And so it was sort of like a go towards it. No, maybe it's too high up. There is a railing, but I like to say if I can see over the side, it's a no-go. But if it's like walls next to it, I'm going to feel like that's fine. I can lean against the wall and I don't feel like I'm going to fall over it. It's just straight up. If I can see down, I can fall down. So I was sort of tossing and turning on whether I was going to push through it or not before I backtracked and said, no, let's go out the front entrance, which turned out to be closed. It was a one-way. They wouldn't let you back through. So I had to face it.